Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, Campfire Cooking in Another World with My Absurd Skill, Season 2.
Yep, Campfire Cooking, Season 2, Episode 4. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo, and I can't believe this is the show that we've been talking the most about. I'm weirded out by that. Genuinely. I looked at last week's recording, and I was just like, I can't cut any of this. Like, sometimes I cut some stuff, and I'm just like, no, this is all kind of important. I can't do it. And it was like, wow, that was one of the longest recordings we've done in a while, because I try my best to keep it, you know, in that like half-hour range, but it just didn't happen. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. But there was a lot to discuss for this one last week, and going into the dungeon this week, I'm sure there's going to be more shenanigans, but you know.
Yeah, especially since this dungeon is apparently a month-long expedition on average.
Yeah, so lots of interesting implications here. As we can see by the title of the next episode, yes, is the real enemy the other monsters, or is it hunger? Because they eat a lot. Got 3 bottomless pits for stomachs over here.
A legendary dog, a dragon, and a slime.
Yeah. So, I'm definitely interested to see what happens with this. All the stuff we speculated last time. Hilarious what they did with what's her name showing up from the other guild. They got to do another, second course for her and the other woman from the Merchants Guild with their like back and forth, riding back and forth. So, I'm sure that'll be a thing. But, once again, the side attention to detail stuff is hilarious. At least Makoto remembered the gods this time. The one thing that we did not mention last week was that Sui did make Makoto a mithril sword. So that's cool. And maybe he'll use that in conjunction with whatever protection spell Hephaestus gave him. Ability. You know what I mean? We talked a lot about him having defensive capability when Fel's not around, or that kind of thing. But, yeah, so looking forward to dungeon shenanigans. Should be fun. So we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So people on Patreon, we'll see you on the other side of the edit for the timer stuff. And people on YouTube, will see you on the other side for the discussion and review. So here goes something. Well, already then, what did we learn right here at the end? If your familiars eat all the snack, not the four-course meal, the snack that they had, your buffs from the buff food equate to less than 10%. So, what are you going to do?
Once again, all he got was a few bites of sausage and a sandwich.
Right. And another aside to that is, they are eating otherworldly food. Technically, he is not. Because that is food that he is used to from his original world. You know what I mean? While now that he's in this other world, it has an effect on his stats. It probably doesn't have as big an effect on him because it's technically food from his native home. You know what I mean? While it probably still has the buff food effect, it probably, because baseline Makoto is not very swole in the stats department across the board. He has grown since the beginning of the series. Obviously, he's in, he has upped his stats there that we saw there at the end. Let me bring it back up here again so we can see the actual numbers besides Hephaestus, losing his mind and being a total, whatever. I think when he started, he was in like double digits, right?
Yeah, he was like
that.
I think his highest stat was like 40, but most of it was like 30s.
Yeah.
But now he's in the 200s on everything.
Yeah, so he's now level 13, accidental otherworlder. He has all those skills, which we've got, appraisal. He's got his item box. He's got his fire and earth magic that he's learned. He's got perfect defense from Hephaestus, which sounds cool. I hope he gets to use it. He's got his contracted familiars, and then the blessings from the goddesses. There you go. And there is the God of War's minor blessing right there.
Yeah.
So there's his name. So there's the name we're going to have to look up. So you might want to check that out while I'm talking here, because we're going to see if that is a reference to any, mythological being.
Kasharl's the goddess of Earth.
Yeah, that is the goddess of Earth, because
Yeah,
the God of
he didn't
War
get
only
blessed by
Sui and not even did he bless Sui? I think it was just Fel and
it was
Dora.
yeah, it was Fel and Dora.
Yeah, that's right. That is the god. Yeah, goddess of Earth, Kasharl. Yeah, dumb. Never mind. Disregard. But either way, things we learned in this episode: Makoto stats have gone up, but not as much as everybody else. We learned about the dungeon. We ran into Iron Will again. That was a thing. We speculated whether or not they were going to, somehow bring back the other characters, that kind of thing. Which, I mean, this is a good way to bring back this group of characters. You meet them in a dungeon again. They're a group of adventurers. This is what they do. Good. I'm glad they brought those characters back. At some point, I do hope we get the other 3 Otherworlders with what's going on with them at some point, but that'll probably be like when we get more, assuming that this is where the story is going, that they'll end up more in the politics department based on various factors like this little bit here at the end you could kind of see as like a little bit of a throwaway sequence, but you could also see that as these adventurers are now going to be like, hey, there was this guy in the dungeon that had like really crazy food and 3 very powerful familiars and stuff like that, you know what I mean, and further spreading the legend of Makoto, you know what I mean, because it's already out there that somebody contracted a Fenrir. That's crazy, you know what I mean. And
well, the rumors are great, but
yeah.
I did just look it up real fast, but yeah, Kasharl, she's based off of Kashar, the Earth goddess in Mesopotamian religion, Babylonian and whatnot.
Got it. Makes sense. So, anyway, so this like little cutaway thing here might be like the other adventurers taking notice of like an individual of note. You know what I mean? Oh man, maybe that was the guy they were talking about. He has like a dragon now. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any like more rumors out of this, that kind of thing. But it's good that they brought these characters back because they were a reasonably important part of season 1. Getting Makoto started and stuff like that. We'll probably see the merchant and his wife that he saved in the first season as well coming back because they're selling his shampoo and soap and stuff. So they'll probably be back. And then as we move on through the next couple towns here, I assume we're going to get to the ocean before the end of this season. We've already talked about that. And with how they're just packing content into every one of these episodes, at the end of the reaction, I did take a dig at Guild Receptionist again. There was more in these 4 episodes than the entire 12 of Guild Receptionist. I would even venture to say the first 3 of this. They packed it in. It's been great. Everything that should be there is. And it's just a great show across the board. And I was not expecting this show, when I picked it up, to be this deep and have that much promise on the back end of, well, look at all the cool stuff that they've seeded that they could use. You know what I mean? Like with the politics with the original nation, the other 3 adventures, the other Otherworlders that came here with them, that kind of thing. So we got a lot going on. It's definitely a thing, especially with all the gods and the goddesses, that kind of thing. Sui being a jack of all trades kind of character, being able to do all kinds of stuff, that kind of deal. So it's there, you know what I mean? So it has the comedy, it has, the seriousness, it has the madness. It's there, you know what I mean? And on top of every other thing that we learned recently, apparently 3 minor blessings equals 1 major blessing. So, in not so many words, go ahead and take that poison to the face.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently, it's very rare for a person to have multiple god blessings, so she didn't bring it up. But yeah, the three minor blessings, 3 resistant to poisons makes you immune to poison.
Yeah, which, I mean, that sounds reasonable. You know what I mean? If you have a reasonable resistance to X thing from a minor blessing, and then you get 3 of them, why not? You know what I mean? The classic 33, 33, 34 scenario. You know what I mean?
So, the God of War is Vahong, which the closest thing I could find is Vahan, the Armenian God of War from pre-Christian Armenia.
I mean, why not? It's probably a reasonable assumption. I mean, I don't know if Armenians used that kind of tattoo structure, but I don't know a lot about Armenian history, so that's one for the old research machine there. But
I mean, looking at this statue of Ahan, it's kind of similar. That like he's shirtless and basically like nothing but a loincloth.
Fair enough.
But I can't really. It's a statue, so you can't really see tattoos depicted or anything.
Right. So that's probably a reasonable assumption that's where the inspiration came from. A lot of authors like this like to do pulls from cultures and mythos that aren't used all that often. You know what I mean? So, and that's how you end up with Magni and Modi being two Spanish guys in Don Machi.
Or, the Knucklevi.
Yeah, or the Knucklevi, yeah. So, either way, it's the classic adventurer's plight, where it's just a trap, and there's nothing in it. And when you get nothing out of the treasure chest, it motivates you to move on to the next thing, even if you didn't want to be there in the first place. When you get denied loot, you must go on and get the next chest, because the next one is going to have very cool stuff.
The next one's gonna have freaking 2 linen cloth and a health potion that heals you 3% of your max health.
If we're gonna make the WoW reference, the next one is gonna have that one wedge of cheese the previous person didn't take.
Yeah. You don't take everything, it doesn't reset.
Yep. So, but from what we've seen of this dungeon, we got dungeon etiquette, and the fact that the rooms, even the boss rooms, respawn instantaneously, apparently.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy. So the amount of materials you can pull out of a dungeon like this is pretty insane. Like, you saw those guys that capped out on floor 10. They probably came out with a pretty reasonable haul, because from what we saw from those kind of spiders, even if they are like lesser, like of little less value than the ones that Makoto got in the woods, they probably came out with several hundred gold worth of stuff. You know what I mean? Which would be worth the risk of, we have a family to take care of, but that could be, hey, we're gonna go do our one dungeon run for the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I got to do one dungeon run a year. It's a little risky, but then you get to live pretty wealthily for the next year without really having to worry about money.
Right. So it's just kind of one of those things. So it's kind of like interesting for that kind of the world building and stuff like that, to have those characters that especially when we got the fact that most of the people go from 10 to 15, and they assume that the 30th floor is the bottom, which I'm sure Makoto and his team here will find that out, since we're already on floor 22. Like I said, they got farther down in the floors than there were minutes in the episode by the end there. They got to floor 22 at minute 17. Now, obviously, it took longer for them in universe, but still. they were powering right along.
Yeah, there's still only one day, and they're on floor 22, whereas most parties, like they were saying, they go on like a month-long expedition and only just hang out in 10 to 15 area.
Yep. And if the stuff is respawning like that, why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Iron Will, apparently, like they got down to the rest stop on, it was like floor 16.
Yeah, something like that.
In 2 days.
Yep.
And we know they're supposed to be pretty confident.
So, either way, the one thing I was going to look at was the Makoto flail, the newest sword fighting technique. If you have any item that's as powerful as the sword Sui created here, you can probably just cut a mimic into ribbons, no problem. The one thing that I wanted to see was, that's what I thought I saw, a magic recovery ring. Now, if that's MP5, that could be a pretty big deal. You know what I mean? If it's passive magic regeneration as you wear it, that could be a pretty big deal, Tom. Because as we saw, when Makoto runs out of magic, he becomes exhausted. Same thing could be said for Dora-chan, who, you know, went through all his magic using his flame spells, and was, you know, hungry. But whatever. I had it, but we all saw it, and I found it again. Look at that. But yes, so generally speaking, magic recovery ring. I assume that has to be the atypical MP5, because I highly doubt it's something that just... It could be one of those cooldown based things where, you know, every X amount of hours you push button and you get 800 mana back. You know what I mean? That kind of classic thing.
And then not use it while you're running out of the dungeon.
Yeah, and then not use it when you're running out of the dungeon. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any more on like items and stuff like that. But that's fairly classic. You know, like loot out of a box like that. And the box is also nice too. You could probably sell the box for something. You know, it's a pretty fancy box.
Sell the jewels and in the box as a like set piece.
Yeah, there you go. You know, it's like box of jewels. You know, and why not? It looks like a fairly fancy box. You know, like every year I have a box right here. I'll show you guys. Every year they do these kind of boxes for Christmas in these cookie tins, you know what I mean? And it's just for, you know, Christmas cookies and that kind of stuff. I have a pile of them from the last, like, 10 years because I get one every year from Costco. And it's just like, this box, still pretty well crafted, and you can keep using the damn thing, and it looks cool. You know what I mean? Even if the box itself is not worth a lot, I still use it for stuff. There's, you know, the other 4 that I have over there on the side of my speaker is has a couple like just random various pieces of things. Like I have like some of my golf equipment in there, you know, like tees and you know, balls and stuff like that kind of thing. So, you know, whenever you have a chance to just continue to use something even after its intended purpose, you know what I mean, is you know, why not? And in the case of this box, I could see it has resale value or who knows what. I could just be talking out my ass because we might never see this box again. But the whole point is, I assume we're going to see this ring again. That's what I was getting at with this whole spiel.
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see what the deal is with that ring. But either way, you know, we have them taking turns in combat now. Because they were just kind of not taking turns, and each one of them wanted to fight, which, again, this isn't much of a fight. They're just farming things. You know what I mean? It's not much of a fight when the opponent doesn't fight back. So we didn't get the teeth parry in this episode. Because there's no need for any of them to parry. Even Makoto RKO'd that mimic without looking at it. You know what I mean? He flailed and looked over, and the mimic was in pieces. To shreds, you say. So... And that was Makoto. The man with the lowest stats in the party. Because Sui's already in the thousands at level... whatever Sui's at, like mid 30s or something, I think I saw. But it's just like, you know, if the weakest guy in the party is shredding a mimic like that, yeah, you're probably in good shape. But that was mostly probably the weapon, but still, you know, I don't think they have a lot to worry about, because if they're on floor 22, and that giant mantis and probably all these other things that they took turns on were probably B rank. Let's not forget that Fel has RKO'd A and S rank things outside.
Yeah.
Okay? And that was before he got blessed by the God of War, which is a 50% increase to his stats in combat. And now he's buffed by otherworldly food. So, there's no kill like overkill, right? So either way, I'm having fun with this show. It's got all kinds of neat stuff. It will be interesting to see what if 30 is the cap, or if they'll, like, you know, add to their legend by, it's like, yeah, we got to like floor 94 and then we decided to come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we still have no real context for how big this dungeon actually is. We just know that according to the receptionist chick, it's at least 30 floors and no one's found the end yet.
Right. And if floor 22 is kind of like, we kind of saw that in like Danmachi, which is the easiest comparison because they have a huge dungeon. is the if these floors get bigger and more grandiose and just intricate, then yeah, the further you go down, the longer it's going to take. You know what I mean? I doubt floor 22 is as short and small of a floor as like floor 3. You know what I mean? Especially if it's this big, wide open area kind of deal. Like it's almost like outside kind of situation.
Yeah, one of the things we also found in the whole like way dungeons work in this is that every time someone dies in the dungeon gets bigger and more complex.
Yep. So lots of interesting lore, lots of just crazy madness, otherworldly stuff. And Makoto only got a hot dog and a sandwich.
Got 2 bites of a sausage.
2 bites of a sausage and a sandwich. But let's be real. I kind of like that as just like a character thing for him, because that's usually how it is for the person cooking. You know what I mean? The person cooking gets the least amount of whatever has been made. That's just generally how it always happens. Like my dad loved to cook, and he'd always eat while he was cooking, but he'd always eat less because he was cooking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the chef typically ends up just picking up the food as they're making it.
Yeah. So I do like that as a like a character dynamic for him. So why not? But anyway, another solid episode. So looking forward to more dungeon madness. Again, I assume we'll be hitting potentially like one more rest stop town, and kind of like what we had with the dwarf guy earlier this season. And then we'll probably be hitting the ocean stuff by the end of the season, because I can't imagine it's going to be in the OP and the ED and not get to the ocean this season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I imagine we'll get to the ocean, and then the season will probably end with going back to the town to finally collect on the mining rates.
Right. So looking forward to that. And again, look at how much we've accomplished in 4 episodes. Look at how much this show has accomplished in 16 total. It's pretty impressive, and not something I was expecting out of a show like this. So bravo, by the way. Good on you.
Yeah, this has accomplished this much in the first 4 episodes of the season 2, which is supposed to be the down season after season 1 goes fast paced.
Yep. So gotta appreciate it. I love it. So that's all I got for this week. I'm enjoying it. So got anything else, Age?
I think there was something I was going to say, but I'm not remembering it.
Nope. We've had a lot to talk about in this one, so something probably got missed, kind of like last week with the sword and whatnot. But at least we got the God of War reference. More than likely is that Armenian God of War, so that's pretty cool. Nice pull. I like it.
At this point, the only god we don't really know, we still don't know the god of creation, but of the gods we know, the only one we don't really know the inspiration for is the water goddess, because I don't remember her name.
Right. I think it was just Ruka. So, I mean, that could be anything, really. We'll have to check that one out. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond however you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was Campfire Cooking, Season 2, Episode 4. Feels way more than 4, but it's great. So have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.